What is up, y'all? My name is Rob Donaldson, and welcome back to another college football pick'em video. And, last week, we'll get right into it, went 5-3-1 ATS over the entire week. And on top of that, we were kind of marginally profitable, didn't even profit a full unit, but hey, it's always better to be on that green side than it is on the red side. And we've been kind of rolling in college football, I'll be honest. We've been seeing it really well, and in terms of the bets that we lost last week, we lost some big bets on Texas State, which really felt like that should have been a blowout. I mean, they were up 22-0 right out the gate in the first quarter. Then Memphis was kind of playing with their food, and we lost two of our biggest bets of the entire week and still finished where we finished. I kind of view that as a win. And, as we're kind of looking at this slate, there's a lot of great games this week, a lot of great bets that I like. And before we jump into it, I do want to give a massive shout out to our boys over at Underdog Fantasy. Obviously, I shout them out because they are our sponsor, and they're a great sponsor, especially if you do like getting involved with the daily fantasy scene, or if you like just daily pick'ems for college, football, WNBA, NBA, college basketball that's coming up. Man, it's a great time to be over there, and if you do use promo code ROBDFB at sign up, they will also hook you up with a pretty sweet deposit match as well. But with all that being said, y'all, let's hop into these picks. First up on the docket, we are taking a look at a Thursday game, and I know, we're going back to the well again. They should really be 4-0 when you're talking about Texas State. Listen, last week they were up 22-0 early on Sam Houston. They really got complacent. When you look at that Arizona State game a few weeks ago as well, when they lost by a touchdown, they got complacent in that game too. And I feel like that has to be a wake-up call because this offense is too good to just not score for minutes at a time or quarters at a time even. And when you're looking at this matchup against Troy, I think it's just kind of calling their name for a blowout. So let's go ahead and lay those 13.5 points for 2 units for our first bet here on Thursday. All right, next up on the docket, we are taking a look at a matchup between Missouri and Texas A&M, and this is going to be in College Station. It's going to be on Kyle Field. No more Jerry's World for Texas A&M, and, in this particular matchup, I know that Week 1 performance against Notre Dame when they had a highly billed opponent coming into Kyle Field, it just kind of haunts them because they got absolutely stomped and they never really showed up for that game. And that was kind of a sour taste, in the mouths of Texas A&M to start the Mike Elko era on that note. And I do feel like they get it back in this game and win it outright. And for that reason, I feel like we're getting a very good price. I say we jump on Texas A&M here for an outright winner and feel really confident about it. All right, pick number 3. We are taking a look at a matchup between Virginia and Boston College. And there's a lot of speculation floating out there about Thomas Castellanos and whether or not he's going to be good to go for Boston College in this matchup. And for that reason, I'm just kind of looking at the reports and kind of gauging, what I think is going to happen. And it does sound like he's going to be back this week. For whatever reason, he was held out last week, and they did not look like the same offense that they had in the previous weeks. And for that reason, I do think with the speculation, we are getting a pretty good value price here on Boston College. So let's go ahead and take them on the money line for 2 units for our third pick of Week 6. All right, next up, we are taking a look at a matchup between North Carolina and Pitt. And when you're looking at this matchup, North Carolina covered for us last week. They really should have won outright. And I do feel like there's still a building point in that game of, they controlled Duke for 3.5 quarters and then just kind of fell flat in their face at the end. They've got to put it together. I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later. There's a lot of talent still in this offense, even with the injuries. And when you're getting 3 points at home, trying to kind of come off that loss on a high note, I feel like they're going to get it done. So let's go ahead and take those 3 points and bet it confidently here for 4 units for our fourth pick of Week 6. All right, next up, we are taking a look at a very obscure matchup between Akron and Bowling Green, and things have not gone well for the Akron Zips under Joe Moorhead. His days might be numbered as a head coach in college football and back to the OC role somewhere if anybody's willing to take him at this point. And when you're looking at this matchup, I think Bowling Green has been one of the more impressive teams with a non-glossy looking record. Obviously, close loss at Penn State, then a close loss at Texas A&M. Those are significant matchups to kind of battle test you for, let alone Akron, but the actual MAC play itself. And I feel like they come out swinging in this matchup. So let's go ahead and lay the 14.5 points here for 2 units for our 5th pick of Week 6. All right, next up on the docket here, we are taking a look at a fun rivalry matchup between Auburn and Georgia. And Hugh Freeze is kind of up against it. He blew that game, and I guess his offense really blew that game with turnovers last week against Oklahoma. And Georgia, I don't know what happened in the first half. We were obviously on Alabama. They took the lead in the second half, and we got an all-time classic out of it when Alabama and Ryan Williams stormed back and had just an amazing one-off play to score like a 70-yard touchdown. And for that reason, I do feel like Georgia's going to have a little bit of extra juice. After we saw Clemson in Week 1 lose to Georgia, they came out the next week and just ran roughshod, in their matchup. And I kind of feel like in the same essence, that's what we're going to get here with Georgia after they kind of came out really flat against Alabama. So let's go ahead and lay the 24 points. It's a hefty one against Auburn in SEC play, but I think they're going to be geared up and ready to go here. All right, next up, we are taking a look at the other team that was involved in that instant classic, and we are taking a look at the matchup between Alabama and Vanderbilt. And this is in Nashville on Vanderbilt's home turf, and you guys know how I feel about this Vanderbilt team. I think Diego Pavia at quarterback, the addition of Jerry Kill, and really bringing over that offensive essence from New Mexico State last year has really revitalized this program. They have some life here. And they went into Missouri a couple weeks back. They absolutely took it to them, took it to overtime. Honestly, they probably should have actually won the game outright in that matchup. And I don't think that was a one-off fluke. I think Vanderbilt is going to be somewhat competitive. And obviously, when you're Alabama and you just beat one of the best teams in the entire country and kind of looked dominant and doing so for a full amount of that game, I feel like there's going to be a little bit of complacency setting in here. So let's go ahead and take Vanderbilt, getting the 23.5 points, and don't be surprised if that first half money line is live, so let's go ahead and sprinkle that here with Vanderbilt as well. All right, next up on the slate, we are taking a look at a matchup between Florida State and Clemson, and every single human being is betting this matchup this weekend, and every single human being seemingly is taking the side of Clemson, and I get it. They've been kind of dominant. They've been looking very, very sharp ever since that loss to Georgia in Week 1, and they are looking like, I think, the best team in the ACC right now. That said, Florida State no longer has DJU. And why is that significant? Well, I feel like that offense under DJU just got complacent in being awful. And in terms of the complacency there, I thought they were disinterested. I don't think they were really elevated in any way by his presence in that offense. And he was just missing throws flat out and turning the ball over. He has been awful. And I feel like any player to step into that QB spot is going to be able to elevate this offense, let alone a redshirt freshman who does have a strong arm, who does throw with a little bit of pop, and also has the ability to throw on the run. I think Brock Glenn is going to be a great addition to this offense and at least elevate it for a game or two. So let's go ahead and actually take Florida State. I know, I don't really love it. I think Florida State is trash, but 14.5 points at home with a new QB being the face of this offense, I think is exactly where you want to buy. So let's go ahead and bet it confidently here in Week 6. All right, next up, we are taking a look at a very off-the-radar matchup that I think is going to be a ton of fun. It's between Old Dominion and Coastal Carolina, and don't get it twisted. Coastal Carolina has been fantastic in past years, and I do still think that it's a very respectable team this year, but when you're looking at Old Dominion, man, I don't think there's a better team with a losing record in all of college football right now. Maybe that's a little bit egregious to say, but in terms of the G5 in particular, man, I think Old Dominion is right there near the top of the queue, and they're not really looking like that from a record standpoint. And I feel like that gives us inherent value to bet their side. So let's go ahead and take Old Dominion, getting the 6 points on the road for our second to last bet here in Week 6. All right, for our final bet here in week 6, we are headed out to the desert of Tempe, Arizona, where we got Arizona State taking on Kansas. And I've been wrong, dead wrong, I would say, on Arizona State this year. I didn't really have a lot of promise in this program and what they could achieve. And Kenny Dillingham has stepped in there and just done everything and then some. Very, very impressive. My hats are off to him. At the same time, I do feel like Lance Leipold in Kansas has more talent. I feel like they have the more upside because turnovers have kind of killed them in the early going. And I do blame a team when they turn the ball over. I'm not one of those guys that thinks turnovers are just kind of luck and aberrations. If you're turning the ball over, you got to clean shit up. And I do feel like Lance Leipold is the guy to clean things up on that front. And when you're getting 3 points on with Kansas and an offense that I think will move the ball in this game, that's enough to really sway me. So let's go ahead and take the Jayhawks here on the road for our final bet here in week 6. All that being said, y'all, I want to give you guys a massive shout out for showing love on the last 3 videos that are pertaining to college football bets for the entire week. They've been doing some really great numbers over here on YouTube, and even the engagement on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it has been fantastic. Man, I love you guys because that's what kind of keeps me coming back. If I didn't get any gratification or satisfaction from these posts, I wouldn't be posting them. And, your guys' comments, your guys' engagement has really kind of driven my passion on this side of things. It's the reason why I started YouTube in the beginning, and I am so happy that you guys have stuck around with me, 2, 3, 4 years later. Some people have even been here since 2016 when I was posting Iowa Hawkeye football breakdown videos. So I want to give you guys a massive shout out, and as always, y'all, I will see you in a future video. Take it easy.